If somebody's new, so let's say we have a new account actually that we're just trying to start right now, we're getting images for that account, but they only have about 20. So for them, I would pin maybe up to 10 times a day, but it's a little bit of other people's content that's well curated on their boards, mixed with some of their own. We might even drop down to 5 for that account.
You're listening to the Make Time Online podcast, where you receive online business advice that goes down smooth and easy. I really apologize for that horrendous introduction, but it would make sense if you've ever listened to the Simple Pin Media podcast by Kate All. That would make complete sense to you. If not, you have no idea what I just did. But seriously, it's worth just listening to her podcast just for the jingle at the start. It's hilarious. She actually has a bit of a story behind it as well. I didn't ask her in the podcast, but I think it's funny, even if you don't. Anyway, Kate Orr is on the Make Time Online podcast today, and we are very privileged to have her chatting because there's been, again, lots of new changes to Pinterest and Tailwind and blah, 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 blah. Yep, lots of stuff's going on. Really, nothing has changed. Sorry for the spoiler alert, but yeah, the changes has happened in like 2018, as Kate will kind of explain and lay things to rest. But she does have some really great tips about how to use Pinterest, how to use Tailwind if you are using Tailwind. Just some, the more broader things. So like what you should actually be thinking about before you even create your pins and create your posts and anything like that. But then also the nitty gritty, like she'll actually tell you exactly how many times a day you should be pinning, which so many people seem to really want to know. Yeah, anyway, she explains all this in the podcast. In case you don't know anything about her, she is from Simple Pin Media. She has like a huge team around her. It's like a full-on business. They like completely manage people's Pinterest account. She speaks to people from Tailwind all the time. This is someone that knows her stuff about Pinterest. So if you have any desire to get traffic from Pinterest, this is the podcast to listen to. As always, you can go to the last few minutes and I just summarize it if you are in a rush. Enjoy. So Kate, there's one really interesting question that I wanted to ask you. The most obvious one, of course, is why was there a stage on Pinterest when Kate Ale was commenting on loads of Harry Potter memes?
You picked up on that. Oh, so good. Well, my beautiful daughter happened to get access to my Pinterest account and had just seen Harry Potter, and she uses Pinterest anyway, but I didn't realize she was using my account. And so all of a sudden I looked into my Pinterest account, and lo and behold, Harry Potter was filling up my smart feed and Harry Potter comments, and people were commenting back. And I was like, oh my gosh, her name is Eloise. I was like, Eloise, you cannot do this. So we quickly got her own account, and she has since been Harry Potter memeing it up like crazy.
Awesome. Well, there's a couple of questions I wanted to go from there is, well, number one, does that actually affect anything like what you're commenting on?
Yeah, well, what it can affect is that it affects your smart feed, basically. So Pinterest sees that as cues of what you're interested in. So that's more of a pinner side, not so much a marketer side. Mm-hmm. But it tells Pinterest, this is what Kate All is interested in. We're going to show her more of that. And then therefore, when I open up Pinterest, that's all I see. Because Pinterest wants to create the ideal home feed. But it can, we'd have to really track it as marketers. I would say it's more the pinner than it is if you were doing it on marketing. So it didn't affect me too much, but I definitely pulled back considerably to fill up my smart feed again with marketing tips instead of Harry Potter.
Is that how you found out? Were you just getting loads of Harry Potter stuff?
Yeah, I was getting notifications and I was like, what is going on? And then, I was a little shocked, but yeah, it was good.
Well, and then the second one, I think is kind of quite, I think the one that I listened to where I heard that, there was a bit of an interesting story as to why I think were you using your daughter as seeing like what she was actually pinning as well? Like was it kind of like a case study or something that you were doing as well a bit at the time?
Well, with that, no, that was completely out of the blue. But what I wanted to see was I wanted to see how actual pinners used it. And pinners can be, at the time she's 13, can be 13-year-olds or can be any demographic. So it's really to see what are the habits. For her, the habit was commenting, and people who were also interested in Harry Potter were actually commenting too, which I did find fascinating, because the joke about Pinterest is that it's the introvert's platform. There's not a lot of conversation. Yeah. And so the fact that she was having conversation with these people who were not bots, clearly, because they were kind of bantering back and forth, I was actually surprised by that. But then it was a good highlight for me as I began to ask my friends who were not in the online space, how do you use Pinterest? And they were like, I use it all the time for everything. Mm-hmm. And I search for things that I want to do later, or projects, or things that I want to do now, or products I want to buy.
Yeah.
So I think it was so enlightening for me just to see that we have to really think about the people who are pinning our content and how they're interacting with it. Somebody may have Harry Potter stuff, and it would be really interesting for them to go out and look for where are these people commenting and what are they talking about in relation to Harry Potter and what are they interested in. And then once you get into that frame of mind, you're able to connect with them to create products, to create content around that.
Yeah, no, and I think that may have sounded like a really random question, like if someone was just listening at the start, but I think that is kind of, to be honest, I've done it by accident. I might pretend like I've meant to bring it down this way, but I didn't at all. I think the really important thing to understand on Pinterest is like who you're actually interacting with or who you're serving. And like you say, I think there's so many different pockets and niches and things on Pinterest with different people that interact in different ways. So I guess like the next kind of question for you is, have you found there's any like particular niches or topics or demographics or something that you think either does super well on Pinterest, or maybe some weird ones as well? Are there any weird ones that you found like do quite well?
Yeah, the one that I think surprised us the most was from a client who created custom dog crates. And they would be out of like old buffets where they could take and convert them to a kennel or a crate for any type of pet. But this was specifically dogs. Yeah. What surprised me about that was because they were custom, and you don't normally, Pinterest users are, we like to call them cold users. They're in the gathering stage. It's like if you picture somebody going around a store and grabbing a bunch of things and putting them in their cart, and then before they actually check out, which for a Pinterest user might be like 3 to 6 months later, they go back through their cart and they pull out the things. Okay, I really don't like this. I don't like this, but I do like this. So that makes something that's custom a little bit more difficult for people to take action on because they have to wait, right? And usually consumers don't like to wait. But their traffic and their business really exploded, and it did really well. And so looking at that was pretty shocking to us. I would say that other niches like finance have been really great too. People that are interested in articles. We do hear of a lot of users using Pinterest to read articles because they're hooked in by the image. The image might have clickbait isn't the right term, but maybe a teaser of a line to get them to click over, and then they find that they're interested in what that person is talking about. As far as things that I would say maybe don't do well, local business is a little bit harder because Pinterest is so global, and you can't really drill down to a certain location. Like for me, where I'm at, to be able to target a user in this area to come into my physical location would be pretty tough if I didn't have an online component or something they could purchase online.
Yeah, no, that does really make sense. And I think no one goes onto Pinterest to find something local. You always are going to use Google for that, aren't you, really? So that completely makes sense. Probably like the big four I always hear, on Pinterest. And I just want to get your opinion on this as well. And if you agree or if you think there should be maybe something different, let's see if I can remember them all off the top of my head. Home decor, and why am I struggling so much here? Women's fashion.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other two? Food recipes,
and wedding.
Oh, yeah, wedding. That's what I always thought. That's how I actually found out about Pinterest in the first place. Because my wife, before we were getting married, it was like, wedding, ooh, Pinterest.
Yes.
I had no idea what it was, to be honest, at that stage. But yeah, there was another one as well. Oh, it will come to me. I should have written that down. But yeah. So would you say they're like the main broad categories that do well?
I would, for sure. I would say food and recipes, wedding, women's fashion, even makeup, DIY, home decor. DIY is a big
crafts,
one. Yeah.
Like crafts and home craft. Yeah, that's
exactly. There's a lot of people over there that are looking for that. And yeah, they're pretty big. But what I love about those big categories is that there's lots of room to create niche spaces underneath them, DIY for certain things. And as more global users use Pinterest, those categories will still remain pretty big, but those other subcategories like the custom dog grates or handmade tile or anything like that, will get bigger and bigger, especially if they sell a product.
And yeah, that is another huge question I wanted to get across as well, is do you think it's better? So say someone's like, right, okay, so they're the 4 big categories. So what I'll do is home decor for every single possible thing that you can think of home decor. Do you think it's better that someone goes down that route, or do you think it's better that they do the old like niche down as much as possible? Like you say, custom dog crates as an example.
Yeah, I would always say definitely niche down for sure, because people are searching very specifically for what they want. They're not just putting in home decor, but they might put in modern farmhouse decor or modern decor. They already have an idea of what they're looking for. They have a style, sometimes potentially more so than help me find my style. That could also be another search as well. If you want to help people really drill down to what is their home decor style. But we always tell people, very similar to SEO with Google, is that people are going to be more specific in their search than they are broad, because they have a problem. They need a solution, and they don't want to have a huge bucket of options. They want to start narrowing it down. So if you can be very specific, you run the possibility of showing up in front of them and they can read your blog post or they can buy your product.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that I've learned kind of quite recently. So my wife and I have actually started very recent. It's still pretty brand new, really, like a more like health and fitnessy kind of one, which is more like our passion project. That's something that we've just always lived by, and it's more the idea behind it is to make it a long-term thing. But we have started to find, on Pinterest with that, we've actually started ranking for certain keywords, and it's like, okay, right now I'm actually starting to see what everyone's going on about with Pinterest, because we're not just getting these random viral spikes and then they disappear, and then you're like, well, that was great for 2 days, but now nothing's there. It's like a constant thing. As in, for example, over Christmas, we didn't really do anything. We weren't putting any new fresh pins on. We weren't feeding the beasts of Pinterest or anything, and so. But we were still getting traffic. It was still like, I don't know, about 100 visitors a day or something with a pretty new site. And I was like, right, this is what people are talking about. And I guess it's just getting, well, for a start, let's get a question out of it. Like, how do you actually do that? How do you get from either a brand new website or someone that's not getting much traffic on Pinterest to actually getting found for keywords and things? Because I think really that's the key, isn't it, for Pinterest?
Absolutely. That's a huge key to it. And also the other element is seasonality. When are people searching for it? And I think based on your topic of fitness, people finish out Christmas and what do they think about next? They think about getting in shape and their New Year's resolution and eating healthy. And so fitness really shines in January and even into February, because people are still thinking about those particular things. And then it has a resurgence again when it comes to May. So when it comes to these keyword targeting on Pinterest, it's thinking, okay, when is my ideal user? So I would say that would be number one, is who do you think is reading your content? What do you think they're interested in? And then, like you said, you started to realize these particular terms you used ranked higher, or you got more engagement than if you were just going to use something broad. So it's very important before people go onto Pinterest, I always tell them, remember the mindset behind why we use Pinterest. And that is, it's a search and discovery platform. It's not social media. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram. It's not Twitter. Those are very timely, and you get quick wins. So you get a like, or you get engagement, but those don't actually translate to a click. With Pinterest, the ecosystem trains the pinner to move off the platform to get the content that they want, which is a beautiful thing for us because we need eyeballs on our website. Yeah. So if we think of it as that's your primary focus, okay, what are the keywords that I'm targeting for? Who is my ideal person and what are they searching? And then how do I get them to my website, which means you need a website. You need a place for them to go.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I don't really want this podcast to be about all the basic stuff. I've had podcasts before with that kind of stuff, like setting up your boards and all of that sort of stuff. I don't want that because obviously you've just got way more stuff that would be useful, I feel like, anyway. So, well, obviously, I don't know how you've found things going on at the moment, but in certain like Facebook groups that I'm in, I keep seeing people at the minute going, "Oh my God, something's changed again with Pinterest, and the sky's falling or whatever, and Tailwind's doing something new and like flagging stuff up." What have you noticed anything that has been like big changes or anything, or are you doing anything different, basically?
We're not. And the reason is because in April of 2018 was when Pinterest really announced this push for fresh content. What they defined a fresh piece of content with was a new image. And when we heard that from Pinterest, we realized, we need to be encouraging our clients to create great Pinterest images alongside creating new content, as well as going back and updating the old. So it had to kind of be this like 3-part Pinterest strategy. And then when they came out last week and they reaffirmed the fresh images, really what they were also saying in that was, we want relevant, recent, inspiring content. We don't want you to pin the same thing over and over and over again. And so this last time that Pinterest and Tailwind met, I believe they were really targeting those people who are pinning upwards of 50 to 100 times a day. And there's people out there in any social media platform, right? We will exploit it to where we can get the most out of it. And at some point, those platforms pick up on these spammy behaviors and they say, we want no part of this. We want our ecosystem for our pinner, which is whom we serve, to be a really curated, beautiful environment. And so they were really targeting those who were just pinning so many times per day and saying, just stop. It's not helping. We want fresh content. So focus really on creating beautiful images, creating great content that inspires the pinner.
Yeah. And I think I've actually heard that exact question recently in different groups, actually. Someone asking, so how many times should you be pinning a day? And I've got my answer, but I don't know, what would your answer be for that at the moment?
It's really great. I think it all depends on how new you are on Pinterest, how much content you have, and how many pins per day you can sustain without repeating the same thing so closely together. So here's a couple examples. One, if we have somebody in the food space who has been a blogger for 9 or 10 years, they've been putting out a post 3 times a week. As you can imagine, they have thousands of posts. So for them, I would say no more than 30. And they can easily sustain that by going through the different seasons and their evergreen posts. They can still curate beautiful pins, especially if they're updating. If somebody's new, so let's say we have a new account actually that we're just trying to start right now, we're getting images for that account, but they only have about 20. So for them, I would pin maybe up to 10 times a day, but it's a little bit of other people's content that's well curated on their boards mixed with some of their own. We might even drop down to 5 for that account. And in some cases, I would even tell clients, if you only have 20, we'd like you to get quite a bit more in your library of images and content before we start, because Pinterest, that yes, they're ready for fresh content, but you can't really repeat any of it so closely together. So anywhere from 5 to 30 is what I normally recommend.
That's a great answer. That is actually, well, yeah, that is, that's what I've kind of found recently as well, is like no more than 30. I think, like, no matter, even if you are, you've got loads of content out there. I just think, from what I've seen anyway, I don't know if it's spot on or anything, but they just want every single thing that you pin, if they want someone to engage on it, basically. And the more that you can do that, the more Pinterest seems to be like, this is a legit account where people are interested in. And so by actually doing less, you end up doing more for your account. I don't know if that's how you find it as well.
No, I do. And I also think as a pinner, so I would encourage people, if they're a marketer, to think about how to think about using Pinterest. Just go on your phone and use it to see how it works. That's a big one. But if I'm in pinner mode, I do a lot of repinning. I'm on Pinterest. I'm saving things to my board. Again, we're back to that gathering. I'm gathering a whole bunch of stuff. And Pinterest knows that that's the pinner's habit. And so what they're saying is, we want you to contribute as a marketer to getting new stuff in there. So when this pinner is pinning, they're not seeing the same stuff over and over again in their searches. We want you to bring it here because we want them to find it valuable, and then they can go to your website. And so it is it's different than, everywhere else. And I appreciate that they're trying to continue to curate in a good environment for their pinners, that they are really focused on the pinner first, the creator second, and that's what they call marketers.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree. I think it's a good thing. It's a good switch. And the people who are like, sky is falling, are probably the people who are pinning 100 times a day and they're a little bit scared.
Yeah.
100%. I get it.
Do you think, because while they're trying to get more and more new content on there, do you think then, so if you did get a pin that ranks on, so if you start using it as, SEO, Pinterest SEO, and getting keywords that are ranking, do you think they're going to disappear quicker because of more fresh content, like good quality fresh content coming out?
I don't think so, actually. If I had to make, I guess, a prediction, I would say that Pinterest wants to be very relevant, like Google. They don't want to just they want to show the pinner really good content that people continue to engage with, mixed with some new, but I still think that new content might. So there's the two places. There's the home feed, the smart feed, or then there's the search feed. I think the new content will end up more in the smart feed, where a pinner just opens up Pinterest and they see new stuff there. I actually think that's where that will be. And then in the search feed, I think it will be still very similar to Google, where you get things that are older mixed with newer, but the whole goal is that it answers the search, queue that you just put in there. It answers it well instead of being not on the mark. So that's what I think, is that new stuff will make its way in there, but I think the first way it will make its way in there is in that main home feed.
Right. Okay. And then the smart feed, do you think will be a bit of a mixture of both?
I do. I think it will continue to be a bit of what the person has searched, what's new, promoted pins, people they follow, and then what Pinterest thinks they might be interested in later or have a future interest based on their search patterns.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's so good to hear from Kate Hall as well. You're getting the real insights. But yeah, anyway, I could probably talk to you about Pinterest for hours and I wouldn't get bored, but I'm sure some other people might. But I would love to. I've kind of probably done this a little bit the wrong way. It's like I've just dove straight in and gone Pinterest, which is probably what most people are going to be super interested in when they see this podcast. But I would also like to really know, because obviously you're not just Pinterest, you have a whole business around you. And so I'd love to dive in a little bit more into exactly what goes on with, well, we had a brief chat before we actually started recording, and I got a bit of an insight, but I'd love to know more about what actually happens with Simple Pin Media. You know, like what kind of services do you provide? Is it changing, or is it kind of always the same sort of stuff? And I want to dive into more how you run your business as well, basically.
Yeah, those are great questions. I love talking business too, alongside Pinterest. I would say that Simple Pin has changed when our clients need something different. So a couple of years ago, when Pinterest did announce the need for fresh images, we realized that clients are really struggling with that. So we decided to build out a Pinterest image department, which not only serves our clients, but it also serves anybody who just wants a consultation about their images, or they want to buy images from us. And then in the future, when video, in the next couple of months, with video becoming more and more important on Pinterest, we'll have video creation for people as well. And then our clients started asking us about promoted pins, which is the paid advertising on Pinterest. So we began to look at how we create that department. And we took our organic management and we began to model the same systems. So what does onboarding look like? What does monthly management look like? Or what does one-time management look like for each of these departments? And then we also looked at the education side, because we realized there are people that come to us who can't afford to pay for our services, but they want to get the information from us as to what we are seeing with our clients and what I'm teaching and what I learned on the podcast. So for that, we have our membership community, which is our paid community where people come in and they get coaching from me about Pinterest marketing and how they can best continue to stay up to speed on all these changes. So that's really primarily where I teach. So what started for me as just, I was an account specialist. That's all I did for people, was manage their Pinterest accounts, has grown into all these different departments with all these different people who work for me. And it's all based on what our customer is telling us they want.
I want to dive into so many things there. I think I've written them down, so hopefully I've got them. I've come back to some things, but I've heard on a podcast before, I'm sure, that you said originally you kind of wanted to be a teacher. Is that right, or have I just made that up?
No, you did. That's right. I got my degree in political science, and my plan was to go back and get my master's in teaching and to be a high school contemporary world problems and civics teacher.
Amazing. I don't know if you know, but I'm a teacher. Well,
you are?
Yeah. Well, me and my wife, that's why we're in Qatar, funny enough.
Very cool.
International teachers. So this is my first year not full-time teaching, which is weird. You go from seeing like hundreds of people a day to me. I get bored of me.
4 walls.
Yeah. But so obviously, like, what you are doing is kind of teaching.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, that is really
definitely
what you're doing.
Yeah. And when in the beginning, we asked for people, probably 2 years after I started the company, we had people ask me to do teaching and courses. And when I taught those courses, I felt like something was missing. It was a video lessons with PDFs, but there wasn't this ongoing follow-up. And with Pinterest changing so much, I just felt this need to get in with people and teach them. And so we closed all of our courses down, and I said, I want a membership, because that recurring community with people helps me to teach them in real time and then coach them. And I realized over this last year, especially, that we've had this membership out, that is the sweet spot for me, because I can teach, with these changes we just talked about have happened last week. If you have a course, it's a little harder to turn on a dime with a group with that, because you have to go back and update your videos and update your PDFs. And with this community, I can just get in with them one by one and say, oh, this isn't working for you, but it might be working for Susie over here, but it's not going to work for you. So we got to try a different strategy. That was another element too, is there's not a one size fits all to Pinterest. It has to be very specific strategy to what it is your industry is in, because you're targeting for totally different keywords and avatars.
Right. And you managed to manage all of that. that's something that I wanted to find out as well, is how many people do you have working inside Simple Pin Media? Because it's not just you, is it?
No, definitely not. I am one of, I would say I don't know if you would call it, I would call it a gift. My gift is outsourcing. I can
Nice.
quickly see what I'm not good at, and I find people who are good at it. And I say, I think you're really good at this. And sometimes people don't know they're good at it, but I can see it. So I'll say, I want to put you here and begin to coach you in this space. So I actually have 39 people who work for me,
Wow.
which is crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Kate, that is amazing. That
it
is
is.
literally amazing. You are
It
changing
is
people's
bonkers.
lives. That's like phenomenal.
Yeah, that was actually, that was a big thing for me. A lot of the women who work for me are local to my area, and it was great to see them come alive when they hadn't worked in a traditional job for maybe 10 or 15 years. They'd had kids and they were coming out and they were like, I don't know what I want to do. And then they swooped in and I hired them and trained them. Some of them started with me 5 years ago as an account specialist, and they're now a team director for me, and they're on my executive team. So the awesome part is just to provide very non-traditional employment to
Yeah.
people who never thought they would re-enter the workforce.
That is, oh, do you know what? That is so much better than what you could possibly do from like being a standard. Well, I don't mean to say standard and like make it sound not very good, but like being a normal classroom teacher, because you are literally teaching so many people and you're providing so many opportunities as well, like at the same time. And I don't think education, it should be like confined to when you're 4 years old to 18. I think really
Mm,
most people learn what they're interested in learning about actually after they leave school. And I think that so
yeah.
many people just don't even realize that that's a possibility. Like you can actually learn more stuff after school. But anyway, that's a whole
Yeah.
other topic.
Yeah.
but
But it's a great topic.
yeah, I think so. But I do want to dig into more like some of the stuff that you do, and you kind of mentioned loads of things there. You mentioned like promotional pins, organic management, the monthly one-time things. I don't know if you can like talk about costs and stuff, like just as a ballpark
Yeah.
figure, because I have no idea like how much it. Like, say I'm just a one-man show and I'm interested. I have no idea what I'm doing with Pinterest. How much is it going to cost me, and am I actually going to get any traffic from this, basically?
Such a good question. All right. So I will say when it comes to organic management, we tell our clients to have a minimum of $2,500 set aside for the project. And that would include 3 months of management at minimum, 4 months actually of management at minimum. But then we would talk to them about needing images. Are they somebody that wants to create images on their own, or do they want us to do it? So in that, there would be an additional cost for images, which hovers right around $15 to $20 an image. We can also put tracking on that, UTM tags. And then if somebody wanted to do promoted pins, those are a little bit more expensive because of the amount of attention to detail has to be kept up with them. A minimum of 1,500 to run a campaign. And that is because campaigns have to be checked in on the daily, sometimes hourly in that first week. And we try to keep those prices a little bit higher too, because we don't want somebody coming in without an objective for why they're advertising on Pinterest. We really want them to be focused on, okay, are your images up to speed? Is your profile branded in the way that you would want it to be? And then if somebody just wants a consult with me, that's $500 for an hour. And then if people want to join our membership, it's $97 a month. And that has all of our teaching in it. That's, you join and you literally get like 10 units of all this education. So you could start anywhere you want with your greatest pain point when it comes to Pinterest. So I would say the minimum would be $2,500. And then if you had us do a build for you or a cleanup, there's a lot of things we can do based on where people are at. And what's interesting is that each client that comes to us has a unique pain point. Some people might come to us and they say, I totally get Pinterest. I can do the strategy, but I can't create images. So they might spend $1,000 and get 60 images from us that they know they can use over the year because that's our greatest pain point. So that's some ballpark numbers for you.
Awesome. So if someone is listening to this and they're like completely brand new to their online business and their blog and stuff, what would you kind of recommend to them? Because some of those might sound like scary numbers for some people that are like, brand new.
Definitely. And one of the things I am very conscious of and have been in the beginning is people's budgets. So we do have those questions on our form for a reason, because what we have found is that when people are very new and they don't have their monetization stream set up, I would never recommend they go into management just yet. Some people come to us and they might have a seed investment, so they know where they're going. That's a little bit of a different situation. But if you're a solopreneur, you're not making any money, I would always suggest you go towards the membership, because then you get an understanding of how you're going to get your right footing when it comes to images or keywords or targeting. And then once you make money, then you can hand off management later. But if you don't have the budget just yet, I would tell people definitely start with the education route before you start with the outsource route.
Yeah, 100%. So do you say the education is $97 a month? Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And that is kind of like learning everything there is to know about Pinterest.
Yeah, exactly. And then I do a coaching call once a month, and then we bring in experts in there. Like Tailwind is coming in tomorrow to answer all the questions about last week's live.
Wow.
So we get things like, we get people like that to come in. We get promoted pin experts, we get analytics experts. So there's a lot of coaching and touching base with me, with my team. We have a few team members in there who are able to ask questions, and we have mentors, people who have really been very successful at Pinterest and great at testing and giving feedback. So it's such a great group for people to be able to feel like they're really taken care of when it comes to Pinterest marketing on a community level, that people are cheering them on, supporting them, giving them a constructive feedback as to what they can do different.
Yeah, I think that is, again, another really important thing for any like growing business or something, just to have support, no matter who it's from. Like, I think if you're just trying to do everything by yourself, as I found out the hard way, and I'm sure lots of other people have as well, it's tough. It's like, it's not easy, and you hear all these massive success stories and you think, why is this not happening for me? What am I doing wrong? But just having people that you can bounce ideas off and just speak to, a normal human being rather than your stupid laptop, I think that helps.
Yes, definitely.
And so I'm really tempted by that whole images thing. That's something for me. It just takes me so long to do, and I see some other people do it, and I'm like, how do they do it? How do they do it so quick? But anyway,
I know people on my image team are amazing. They can do an image in like 30 minutes, and it's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And their 30 minutes is like my 8 hours.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't know how to do it. That's something, actually. How important are the images?
They're the most important, I would say. And here's why: because pinners are only primed to look at the image. So even me, last week, we're hosting our first Pinterest conference in the fall. And so I was looking through Pinterest for all these different ideas for setup of rooms and printing and all of that. And I went to Pinterest and I created myself a board, and I was an actual pinner. I did not look at the words below the image. I only looked at the image. And so I'm saving things just based on the image. So for business owners, this is your billboard advertising. This is people thumbing by on their phone 1 second. You have only 1 second to catch them. So what you put on there has to be something resonates with them. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's in the interior design real estate space, and she said her images that don't have any words on them, but they're just these beautiful interiors of the home, they get more engagement because that's all the pinner wants. They just want to see these pictures so that they can go find the product in the picture. Well, other people who have articles, they have to put text on their image because that's what's going to draw the pinner in to read their article, as opposed to just seeing like a picture of a chair on a beach. The text gives it context. So I would say, without a doubt, it is the number one most important thing.
Okay, and this has triggered loads more questions again. is there somewhere where you would say is like a good place for people to get images, or do you have any like cool places that you personally use, or like how do you, because obviously just standard stock images are normally not always the best.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Stock images. And I would say we have looked at, I think it's iStock, which is a little bit more expensive, but they have very unique images. So if you were going to go the stock image route, there's that. The other thing we suggest to people is hiring a local photographer to take some pictures of you, especially if you're a product seller, to have that local photographer take a bunch of pictures. Even though I'm not a product seller, we actually hired a photographer to take a bunch of pictures of our PDFs and to do pictures of desks where we could put red things or flowers, anything that would make our pictures look more branded towards Simple Pin. And we can play with them on the programs and move them around. But even just spending that money to hire a photographer, which we've heard some people paying anywhere from $200 to $1,500 or even more, I don't think it has to be expensive. And there's probably people in your area who are wanting to get more, trial runs when it comes to photography. So you could always have those people take stock photography for you. And we found that's a really great way to get more images.
Awesome. And you mentioned as well, like the text layover and stuff. How important is like the words and like your headings and the call to action that you put on there?
Yeah, it's really important because Pinterest will scan the image. They're working on visual recognition. It's been a push for them that they've had the last couple of years with their visual search tool, but it's becoming more and more important that Pinterest has told us they do read the text on the image. So if you do have text, make sure that whatever it's about at least has that word in it. So if it's gluten-free something, gluten-free is in there. It doesn't have to be the exact title of the post. It can be 11 amazing things to do at the beach, but maybe you're talking about a Mexico trip or something like that. Right. It can be a lot of different things that you can play with the text, but they do read the text on the images.
I've heard they don't like the word click. I don't know if that's true.
Yes, it actually is true.
Really?
We've heard of people reporting that it's okay to use on the image, but not in the pin description.
Okay.
So I would say pin description is first what they've told us. Don't use the word click in there. But some people still find that it works inside their image.
Cool. That's good to know. Nice. I did want to have like a bit of a chat about podcasting and stuff, but I'm not going to, because that could just open up another whole can of worms. But have you got any other courses, tips, tools, resources, like anything that you found super useful, like for you or your business or anything in general, basically?
Yeah, there's a few that number one, we love Tailwind. That has been an amazing resource for not only our company, but for our clients. And they have a really great blog that they keep updated with all the Pinterest best practices. They do also do Instagram, so you'll see a little bit of those there. We have an analytics tool that we use. It's a custom dashboard we can find on our site, and Google Analytics 100% has been one of the best tools for us, and that's free. Our dashboard is on the site. I can send you a link to that. That's at cost, but that's been another tool that we use for our clients. Let's see. And Canva, that is what we use to create images. It is such a great image creation program. There's a free version for those who don't have big budgets, but then there's a paid version at $19.99 a month, and it is such a great program. It has lots of great tools for those people who are not great at images, pairing fonts together, colors, even stock photography in there. It's such a, hands down, it's our favorite program when it comes to Pinterest.
Yeah, I've never really heard anyone talk about the paid version really before. I didn't know would you say it's much better?
Yeah, it is. Another great feature of it is, let's say you create a Pinterest image. With one click, it will convert that image into the same size, into the size for other social media platforms. So if you've
Oh,
created this image
nice.
and you need it for Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, you click a button and it converts them. You just have to make a few minor changes, but that in itself saves so much time.
Yeah, that is
And
pretty
yeah,
handy.
yeah, and so I would say the paid, especially for categorizing, if you're going to create quite a bit of images, there's lots of folders you can utilize. There's other great features that are, if you want to get a little bit more fancy, it's usually how it does, between the free and the paid, but we absolutely love it.
Amazing. Um, right. And now this is a question that I ask everyone that comes on the show at some point. So I'm going to try and pick a day. I need to get a day. I didn't really go too much into like the backstory and stuff, so it might be a bit harder. Let's go to when you did you say it was political science degree? You did?
Yep.
Let's go
Hmm.
to that towards the end of that. So you're still thinking of being a teacher, right?
Hmm.
Let's
Yep.
let's say it's your last year in your political science degree. You're doing an essay or something, and you're thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be a teacher. It's going to be so much fun." If you could go back to that day where you're there writing up an essay on your political science stuff, if you, knowing everything that you know now, if you could go back to that day, what would be one piece of advice you'd give to yourself?
Oh, I think the biggest piece of advice would be that it's okay to fail, and that when you fail, you actually learn more than you do in your successes, and not to be afraid of it, not to run from it, but to embrace it and squeeze out all you can from that failure and then take it into future growth.
Oh, perfect. Thanks so much, Kate. Really, it's been a pleasure to chat to you. If anyone does want to get in contact, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, Simple Pin Media, you can go visit the site. I'm at Simple Pin Media everywhere, but I am on Instagram quite a bit and I do DM people. So that's probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me. Email can sometimes be a little bit more difficult and can take days for me to respond. But Instagram is usually where I am sharing stories behind the scenes of what we're doing with the company and where we're going with Pinterest and with Simple Pin.
Good to know. Thanks so much, Kate. I really do appreciate your time.
Yes, absolutely.
So there you go. Kate Hall on the Make Time Online podcast. Who would have thought it? I'm going to just quickly summarize 5 key takeaways that I took from the chat with Kate, and hopefully it can help you as well. So number 1 is just go on Pinterest and use it. Go on Pinterest on your phone and use it. Just figure out like how do people actually use it. If maybe you already do this every day, and that's probably really handy because you already know like how it works. I had no idea what Pinterest was when I started trying to use it to get traffic to my blog, which does not help. It really doesn't. It's really important to understand try and figure out who the users are, what their experience is, what they're actually looking at when they go on Pinterest. So if you have a specific niche, then it's going to really help just understand who your audience are, what sort of stuff they're looking at the moment. Number 2 is, who do you think reads your content? It's important to figure out who your audience is. And again, it's going to be different for every kind of niche. And people kind of talk about Pinterest, like Kate mentioned, sort of as this like introverted person, typically an introverted woman, middle-aged woman is normally who people think of. But as she pointed out, there's so many like pockets, like her daughter, 13-year-old daughter, commenting on all these Harry Potter memes. You know, that's a completely different user to the introverted, quiet, shy, wants to read articles, middle-aged woman, which is what most people think of Pinterest as. So whatever your niche is, whatever your topic is that you're talking about, figure out who they are and how they're interacting with Pinterest. I think that's more important than anything else Kate says on the podcast. Those 2 things alone. Figure out who's actually doing it, because then that's going to help you create the things that they want to see and interact with them in the right way. Number 3 is relevant, recent, inspiring content. I really liked that. Relevant, recent, inspiring content. If you can create that, obviously Pinterest wants fresh content. That's huge. They've made that clear for a long time now. Fresh, new content. And fresh content doesn't have to be a fresh post with a fresh pin. It could be an old post with a fresh pin. That is classed as fresh content on Pinterest. But Pinterest does really, really love if you've got a new article and a new pin, which is really good, and the article is really good. That's the ideal situation, basically. Which goes on to number 4. And Kate says, basically, from between 5 to 30 pins a day. You don't really want to be doing more than that. As she kind of like pointed out, if you're like got a season blog, as you've got lots of content, you've got lots of pins, then yeah, by all means aim for 30 pins a day. But if you're a brand new blog with only like 20 images, then maybe only 5 times a day, and maybe up to 10, but using other people's content in there as well, other people's pins. Basically, Pinterest just wants really good content. And I do notice accounts that are getting repins, getting people engaging on their content. So rather than trying to create lots and lots and lots of pins, try and create less good pins, and that will help. That's something that I have found out the hard way. And I still wouldn't say my pins are good. So I would still need to improve that game, and I know that. But anyway, that's the aim. Really good, less is more, basically. And number 5, last one, is if Kate could go back in time before she started any of this, she would tell herself it's okay to fail. And I think that's just a massive message, and one that comes up time and time again on this podcast from different people that are making millions of dollars a year. Have said a very similar thing, is you are going to fail. You are going to do things wrong. You're going to do things bad. It's okay though. It doesn't matter. Like, you can create a brand new Pinterest account in the next 10 minutes and just randomly start pinning some stuff to it. It doesn't matter. You can delete that account. You can go and create another account. People seem to get really worked up and stuff. And yes, it does take a lot of time and effort to create the accounts really well. So I do get that. I completely get it. But it doesn't matter. I remember so here's a story. I got my main Pinterest account suspended I've done a lot of work. I got to 3,000 followers and done loads of this tactics and group boards and all of that sort of stuff. And then my account got suspended. Pretty much probably around the time that all the big changes were happening with Pinterest. And I thought it was the end of the world. This is where most of the traffic was coming from at the time. It's not the end of the world. I just created, I actually couldn't even get it reactivated, even though there's millions of ways to do it. Anyway, that's another thing. But I just created a new account, and my new account is way better than my old account because I didn't make all the stupid mistakes I made the first time around. So anyway, I hope that podcast was useful, guys. Definitely check out Simple Pin Media to get in contact with Kate. As she said, go onto Instagram. That's where she's active, and she will get back to you. And I really do hope that helped. Take care. Thanks for listening in to this episode of Make Time Online. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review for our podcast in the App Store. Keep changing for the better, guys. Take care.